Also, while waiting for the other participants to enter our Zoom, kindly change your screen name into your complete name dash school name for the and for the professionals, complete name dash professional. Thank you. Yun. So good afternoon to everyone. So let us now start. So I invite you all to please settle down. And now for our invocation led to us by our PSME DIMSU Student Unit, one of our board of directors, Ms. Donna Tamsi Padilla, followed by the national anthem.
Let's ask our and God, Son, and Holy Spirit, we and thank your name, Almighty and so that he may offer the best of his may we all learn to peace and put what we've learned into practice. We will be in the safety for
Mga kababayan, ang pambansang awit ng Pilipinas.
So dahil naputol ang prayer natin kanina, so can I ask our board of director once again for the invitation? Ayos na ba yung connection mo, Donna? Okay. All right, so I think we're having some connection issues. Okay, so let's move on muna sa natin, webinar etiquettes. So for our webinar etiquette, so keep your computer, microphones, phone lines muted during the session. Active participation is highly encouraged, and all questions will be addressed at the end during the Q&A. During the Q&A, keep your questions minimal and on the topic. Change your screen name into your complete name dash school name. Example, Juan de la Cruz dash 𝐿𝐴𝑐𝑡 𝐿𝐴. And for professionals, your complete name dash profession. So sample is Juan de la Cruz dash 𝐿𝐴𝑐𝑡 license ME. So at the end of the session, there will be a post-evaluation form. So the form must be completed by participants in order to receive an e-certificate. And also to this, we have a requirement po, which is you have to follow our FB page and subscribe to our YouTube channel para po ma-receive niyo po yung e-certificate. So, yeah. And we'll represent that later on. Okay, and now for our partner organization. Let's start off with 𝐵IMSTO Association of Food Technology Students. Philippines Association of Student Crime and Accident Prevention Council, PSME Cebu Technological University, the now campus chapter, Institute of Integrated Electrical Engineers Council student chapters of 𝐵IMSTO 𝐿𝐴, Junior Philippine Association of the Philippines, 𝐵IMSTO 𝐿𝐴, Junior Philippine Society of Mechanical Engineers, Mindanao State University, Jensen Santos City, PSME Camarines Sur Polytechnic Colleges, Student Unit, Lupon ng mga individual na nangangalaga sa kalikasan, and the PSME Tarlac State University Student Chapter. Tigman-Silag Diag 𝐵IMSTO 𝑆LO. And the Global Institute for Youth Development, La Union. And now we'll be proceeding to our participating schools. So you know the drill here, guys. And alam naman natin yung mga ginagawa din natin ng mga past webinars natin, which is ito yung part where all of our participants should be active in this point. Well, in our comment section, that is. So if you see your school logo, please show a little spirit sa mga schools yun naman. And if you have a campus cheer, much better. You can drop it in our comment section below. And saktong-sakto, babasahin ko yun after na opening remarks natin para sa mga shoutouts in our comment box. Okay? So be proud of your institutions, guys. Come on. Okay, so let's start off from Luzon. So we have Bataan Heroes College, Bataan Peninsula State University main campus, Batangas State University, Bicol State College of Applied Sciences and Technology, Bicol University, Bulacan State University, Camarines Norte State College, Camarines Sur Polytechnic Colleges, De La Salle University, Dasmariñas, Don Honorio Ventura State University, Emilio Aguinaldo College, Cavite Campus, Golden Gate Colleges. Come on guys, magingay naman kayo sa comment section natin. Okay, so we have Holy Angel University, Laguna State Polytechnic University, Santa Cruz Campus, Lyceum of the Philippines University, Cavite Campus, Lyceum of the Philippines University, Batangas Campus,
Recording in progress. Recording stopped.
Okay guys, so saan na kayo sa mga participants natin dyan? Free na free ang ating comment section below. So you can drop whatever shoutouts you want to say. And we have some Malayan Colleges Laguna, Manuel S. and Varga University Foundation, Mariano Marcos State University, 𝐤𝐴𝑐𝑡 University of Science and Technology, Palawan State University, Pangasinan State University Urdaneta City Campus, Inman University of Pangasinan, Polytechnic University of the Philippines Alfonso Campus, Polytechnic University of the Philippines Maragondon Campus, Romblon State University, St. Louis University, Sorsogon State University Main Campus, Southern Luzon State University, Tarlac State University, Technological University of the Philippines Cavite, University of Batangas, University of Nueva Cáceres, University of Perpetual Health System Junelta Binan Campus, University of Rizal System, Westmid International School. And now from the NCR, we have Sun University, Leo de Muntinlupa. Come on, guys! Leo Amang Rodriguez Institute of Science and Technology, National University Manila, Pamantasan ng Lungsod ng Maynila, Polytechnic University of the Philippines Manila, Polytechnic University of the Philippines Taguig, Polytechnic University of the Philippines Quezon City, okay, so nagiging active na mga participants natin. That's good, guys. Just keep it up. So, Technological Institute of the Philippines, Manila City. Technological University of the Philippines, Taguig. University of Perpetual Health System, Delta Calamba Campus. University of the East, Manila. University of Santo Tomas. And now from Visayas, we have Capiz State University Main Campus, Central Philippine University, Cebu Institute of Technology University, Cebu Technological University Danao Chapter, Central Philippine State University, Eastern Visayas State University or Moc City Campus, Iloilo Science and Technology University Main Campus, Negros Oriental State University, Suleiman University. STI West Negros University. Pulumpon Institute of Technology. University of Antique Main Campus. University of Cebu, Lapu-Lapu, and Mandaue. University of San Carlos, Talamban Campus. University of San Jose, Recoletos. University of Visayas. Visayas State University. Western Institute of Technology. Western Philippines University. And now from Mindanao, we have Ateneo de Davao University, Central Mindanao University, Green Valley College Foundation Incorporated, Malayan Colleges Mindanao, Mindanao State University General Santos City, Mindanao State University Marawi Main Campus, Mindanao Aeronautical Technical School, St. Peter's College, University of Mindanao Main Campus, University of Southeastern Philippines, Western Mindanao State University, Xavier University, and from our home school, Don Mariano Marcos Memorial State University, Med La Union Campus. And we also want to acknowledge all the additional participating schools that are here in our webinar for today. And that will be Lorma Colleges, Misamis University, Notre Dame of Marble University, University of Baguio, Santa Lucia College, Aklan State University, Saravia National High School, PUP Mariveles Bataan, Capital University, Angeles University Foundation, King's College of the Philippines, University of Southeastern Mindanao, SUSLO, La Union Colleges of Science and Technology, FL Vargas College Incorporated, Ifugao State University, Garcia College of Technology, Kidapawan City National High School, Bohol Island State University Main Campus, St. John Technological College of the Philippines, Bukidnon State University. Sayo po. And for special participation from Pen and Roll Guide 𝐿𝐵𝐲. Junior Senior Information Technology enthusiast of 𝐿𝐵𝐲. Association of Fashion Textile Technology Students of 𝐿𝐵𝐲. Psych Society of 𝐿𝐵𝐲. So once again, before anything else, I would also like to acknowledge the presence of our PSME National President, Ms. Melanie Pascualco. And so welcome po, ma'am. And once again, so good afternoon to all of you. And welcome to our once again, po, I would like to acknowledge our PSME National President, Ms. Melanie Banayos. So yun po, so welcome to our webinar for today. That is that is entitled Safety and that is focused on safety and health. Okay, so I am Maria Erica Macy Santa Ana, and I am the PSME 𝐤𝐡𝐢𝐥𝐢𝐥𝐢 Student Unit Treasurer, and I will be your Master of Ceremony for today. Okay, to start our program, let us hear a opening remarks from our PSME 𝐤𝐡𝢢𝐥𝐢𝐥𝐢 Student Unit President, Mr. John Abel R. Delizo.
Okay, good afternoon to each and everyone. So to our honorable speaker, Engineer Jobel P. Malaygay, our dear advisor, Engineer 𝐿𝐻𝑒𝑎𝑙 presidents, officers, members, and instructors of the various participating schools, our members and professors from our very own school, 𝐤𝐴𝑐𝑡, our hardworking officers, participants, and guests, a pleasant afternoon. And of course, I would also like to acknowledge again our national PSME President, Engineer Melanie P. Banayos. Good day, ma'am. And thank you so much for taking the time to join us today as we learn together and accelerate the exchange of ideas. It is my honor to open and welcome you in this webinar entitled Republic Act 11058, an act strengthening OSH compliance and providing penalties thereof. I strongly hope that this webinar will not only give us information about the topic, but will also help us further understand the importance of safety in our workplace, in our future careers. And our presence today just goes to show that we really have the eagerness to widen our understanding about various fields of this topic. So I would also like to take this opportunity to express my deepest gratitude on behalf of the PSME 𝐤𝐴𝑐𝑡 Student Unit to our dear speaker, Engineer Jobel Malaygay, for not hesitating to be our speaker in today's webinar. And I would also like to thank our partner organizations for this event have become more meaningful and exciting with you. So let me acknowledge our partner organization. To start with, we have the 𝐤𝐴𝑐𝑡 Association of Food Technology Students, headed by Ms. Joan Patricia Padilla. We also have the Institute of Integrated Electrical Engineers Council of Student Chapters, 𝐤𝐴𝑐𝑡, headed by Mr. Edmer O. Mueca. We also have the JPSME Mindanao State University, Jensen City, headed by Mr. Fritz Wingard Ortega. We also have the Junior Philippine Society of Mechanical Engineers, Cebu Technological University, the now campus chapter, headed by Mr. Robert Jan Hopia. Junior People Management Association of the Philippines, Don Mariano Marcos Memorial State University, La Union Campus, chapter headed by Ms. Jana M. Casilang. Lupon ng mga individual na nangangalaga sa kalikasan, headed by Ms. Camille M. Agutana. PSME Camarines Sur Polytechnic Colleges Student Unit, headed by Mr. J.V.M. Villamer. PSME Tarlac State University Student Chapter, headed by Ms. Ara Jane P. Dunca. Student Crime and Accident Prevention Council, headed by Okay. Wait. Okay. We have the Sigden Silnagbiag, headed by Ms. Kyla Shane Oligan. The Global Institute for Youth Development La Union, headed by Mr. Jumel D. Kakayuran. So to our participants and officers of our participating schools, we really appreciate your presence today. And I would also like to acknowledge some of the various organizations in the 𝐤𝐴𝑐𝑡 who are here today. We have the AFFTS, or the Association of Fashion Textile. We also have the Senior Information Technology Enthusiasts, Psych Society, Pen and Scroll Guild. And I would also like to commend and thank once again the PSME 𝐤𝐴𝑐𝑡 Student Unit and our hardworking volunteers for their hard work in organizing this event. Let us prepare our hearts and our ears as we listen to our speaker in today's webinar. Once again, thank you so much. and have a great time ahead.
Yun. So once again, thank you, Press. And now let us move on to our resource speaker for today. So sino nga po ba siya? Okay. So our resource speaker for today, he's a graduate from Pangasinan State University with a degree of Bachelor of Science in Civil Engineering. He's the owner of the OSH consultant of the DESO Safety Training and Consultancy Services, a duly accredited safety training organization, STO. He has received the following awards and recognition as Top 15 National, 9th Dole Gawa Kaligtasan at Kalusugan in the year 2014, Achiever in the Construction Excellence, Makati Development Corporation in the year 2015, Outstanding Safety Practitioner Safety Organization in the Philippines Incorporated in the year 2017, and he has 13 years of actual OSH experience in the field of engineering and construction, building operation, shipbuilding, mineral use, and site development. Now, without further ado, let us all hear it from and welcome Engineer Joel D. Malaygay.
All right, so thank you everyone, and thank you ma'am for the introduction, and good afternoon everyone. Happy Sunday and happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there and to all your mothers. All right, so let me first share my screen, and this is my second time to conduct to speak with your organization, and thank you again for inviting me, and it is my honor to go back and to share our experiences in the field of safety and health. And thank you so much, everyone. Can I ask for permission to share my screen? Thank you so much. Right, while we are waiting, and so your topic would be the OSHA, the new law or the guidelines, the new legislation of our Philippines legislation for occupational safety and health. So good afternoon, everyone. So let me share with you the implementing rules and regulation of Republic Act 11058. The Republic Act 11058 is an act was established or signed by our President, President Duterte, in August 2019. And in the field of safety and health, before this legislation or law can be fully implemented, it requires a implementing rules and regulation. And in December 2019, the IRR or the Department Order 198-18 was took effect and was done, and the effectivity of this RRR was in January 24, 2019. So 3 years, or this law has already 3 years old. And here we will talk about the salient features of this law or legislation. And I believe it is applicable to us, especially in the field for the private sector. And take note that this law or legislation came from DOLE, Department of Labor and Employment, who oversees or monitor the compliances of the private sector. And this legislation is not applicable to the public sector because public sector was under the Civil Service Commission, but we commend the Civil Service Commission because in 2020, so they have established or put up these guidelines that all public sectors shall follow or comply with the requirements of this Department Order 198-18. So we will talk about the 31st sections of this new legislation, and being the engineer, the future engineers who will handle people in the workplace, who will act as the supervisors, who will conduct meetings prior to the start of their activity, who will directly manage the work activity of your people. We are also tasked, or we are the one responsible to ensure the safety of our people. While we are supervising, we need to ensure that the control measures applicable or appropriate for your activity are implemented. And to start with, we will share with you the salient features of this standard, and for you to understand and so what are the applicable legislations or law to your industry later on, right? Or on the field you want to pursue, or later on after your formal education and passing the board exam. So apology for my presentation because my the presentation my material is not compatible. My PowerPoint presentation is not compatible in the software that I'm using right now. So section 3, so let's start with the section 3. The coverage is this is for all industries, and as I have mentioned earlier, it is it is not applicable to the civil service to the public sector because they are being regulated by the Civil Service Commission. But in 2020, the Civil Service Commission has released a guideline that all public sector should follow what is stipulated in these guidelines. That some public sectors has get our service, and we have already conducting the mandatory trainings, and we are already assisting or guiding the public sector to comply with the provisions of this standard. So let's define, or let's give some of the definitions of the standard. Certified first aider, these are personnel who have conducted a first aid training from our authorized or accredited agency. Taking the first aid training can be done or can be conducted not only by thank you so much po. So let me first check. And so can I have a minute? Thank you for that. All right, so and sorry for that, and thank you. All right, so first aid training can be conducted by Bureau of Fire, Department of Health, TESDA, and Red Cross. We have the guidance for this that not only Red Cross can conduct the first aid training anymore. And you can conduct or you can have this training from any chapter that are nearer to your location. Competency standards refers to the industry-determined specification of proficiency required for effective performance. Here, the competency, we have a guidelines for that. For example, what are the qualifications of a welder? What are the classifications or competency? How to become a safety officer? And for the safety officer, we have different levels. And the highest level is the SO4 or the safety consultant. Right? But safety consultant and practitioner, so we have two classifications, certified and DOLA accredited. So we will talk about the qualifications and as we go on with our discussion. And covered workplaces refers to the area or the environment where your work are being undertaken. So like for example, if you're a driver, so your workplace outside your premises or your building. And like for example, we are having right now the online trainings. This is our workplace. Refers to establishment, project sites, and all other workplaces where work is being undertaken, wherein the number of employees, nature of operations, and risk or hazard involved in the business require compliance. The compliance, it depends on the number of the manpower compliance or how many safety officers we will deploy in a certain area, in a certain site or project, how many health personnel, and when do we need the engagement or the service of a doctor, a physician, and nurses, and so all will be discussed here. Right? And covered workplaces, it differs. It depends on the nature of our industry, but that is why we have different compliances, and will depends on the type of our industry. And manufacturing general industry is different from construction industry, as well as for the mining industry, aviation, maritime, shipbuilding. So we have different guidelines for these different industries. Another, so let me continue. So low-risk establishment. So we have three types of classification of establishment for the new legislation. Before, our category of establishment is non-hazardous, hazardous, and highly hazardous. But with our new law or legislation, the risk classification has been changed to low risk, medium risk, and high risk. Low risk are establishment that based on our risk assessment, their hazard are acceptable or tolerable. And like for example, the work are low risk, consider what areas or industries can be considered as low risk. They are office works employing 9 employees below, and the possible effect of the nature of their activity could be resulted to muscle pain, back pain, first aid, and so and that is at low risk, or the chance of harm occurring is somewhat or negligible, and the result is acceptable. So for the medium risk, the possibility of occurring an accident could result to fracture, disability, medical treatment. So these are activities that we are already using tools, materials, and example of medium risk are mall and operations. We have the convenience store, Those are some of the examples of the medium risk. And for the high risk, the result of the incident could have resulted to death, fatality, or permanent total disability, and also major property damage. Those are the possible result of a high-risk establishment. And the example here, we have the 16 examples of this high-risk industry. So we have the chemical works and chemical production plants, construction, any form of construction, even though that this construction work are having only one person, one worker, and it fall on high-risk establishment. Deep sea fishing, use of explosives and pyrotechnics factories, firefighting. It could be the farthest cubers possible, and the firefighting equipment production, and healthcare facilities, like for example, our hospital setting, so considered as high risk. Installation of communication accessories, towers, and cables. We also have the LPG filling, refilling, storage, and distribution, mining, petrochemical works and refineries, power generation, transmission, and distribution in the energy sector, storage and distribution center for toxic or hazardous chemicals. So when we say toxic, these chemicals are poison or could poison our health, our organs when they enter our body. And or hazardous chemical. Hazardous it could be one toxic and could cause cancer, and it could cause health hazards, chronic health hazards when our workers will expose to this kind of chemicals. That is why we have a DNR legislation for this, the control of hazardous chemicals in the workplace, and storage of fertilizers in high volume. Like for example, in agriculture, so we store chemicals and water supply, transportation, water supply, sewerage, like the STP, the sewer treatment plant, waste management, water treatment facility was included already here, and works in chlorine, which use in bulk, and chlorine in use in agriculture as pesticide, and other. Number 17, activities closely similar to those enumerated, but the classification of your establishment, the risk classification of your establishment will be based on the risk assessment conducted by your safety officer, and will be based on the assessment or recommendation of our DOLE officials who have inspected your workplace. But sometimes the recommendation or the result of your risk assessment conducted by the safety officer are honored by your safety by the DOLE inspector, as long as that your safety officer has undergone the prescribed mandatory training for safety officers. That is the Bosch SO2 for general industry, Bosch SO1 for general industry under low risk establishment, and SO2 for medium risk and high risk establishment, and cost for the construction industry. Right? Let's move forward. Another definition, safety officer. This refers to any employee or officer of the company. We have the function of a safety officer can be included to the roles or responsibilities of one of your employee if your establishment are classified as medium or low risk establishment. But if your establishment falls under the high-risk establishment, even though that your employee or workers are below 9, we need to hire or designate a dedicated safety officer. All of the safety officers assigned task designated by the employer shall have the mandatory prescribed training. Mandatory training prescribed by DOLE and DISA standard. The training can be done or can be undertaken by from DOLE or center and to any DOLE accredited training organization, just like as the BESA. We are one of the 98 DOLE accredited safety training organization in the Philippines. So you can check the complete list of the DOLE accredited training organization from the DOLE website. And we can conduct face-to-face and online training because we have the interim accreditation from DOLE and considering the COVID-19 restrictions. Right? And the safety officer 1 refers to an employee who has completed the mandatory 8 hours training as prescribed in the 𝐭𝑠𝑖 standard. So we have a syllabus for that. And you will only get this training to DOLE and the other DOLE accredited training organization. So that is the 10 hours training. That is the for low-risk establishment. And SO1 training can be an additional training to your employee or person assigned by the employer with additional function as safety officer in the workplace. Safety officer number 2 or level 2 refers to an employee who has completed the mandatory 40 hours, meaning this is a 40 hours or 5-day training. And the appointment or designation of safety officer 2 are the required level for medium risk to high risk. And even though that you are a low risk, but if you have a 100 or more employees, you are required to have a SO2, safety officer 2. Right? And the training here is 40 hours, and we are following the DOLE prescribed template. And this is your advantage if you have this, because you can be appointed a safety officer, possible, and for you to have an understanding and of the understanding. Yes, Ma'am Prisha? All right, so understanding of the occupational safety and health. Right, so what are the requirements? What are the duties? And in this training, so we will equip you with the proper knowledge, so you will understand the work of a safety officer. All right, thank you so much. And let's move. Safety officer 3 and safety officer 4 are the advanced or the next level after taking a safety officer 2 training. If you have a SO1 training, you cannot automatically upgraded to safety officer 3 because the requirement here is the 40 hours. Or if you have taken the training for SO1, you are still required to take the SO2. That is why as when someone inquires about SO1, and we encourage them to take the SO2 since it is the coverage is higher, and that is the requirement for you to become an safety officer level 3. We have 2 classification of safety officer 3. The first one is the certified SO3, meaning your HR and your employer will certify you as safety officer 3 or practitioner upon meeting the following requirements. you have the 40 hours mandatory training. The 40 hours mandatory training will depend on the nature of your industry. If you are in the construction industry, the requirement is cost, construction, occupational safety, and health. But if you are in the general industry, you are required, the requirement is the BOSH SO2, the basic occupational safety and health for safety officer level 2. We have separate syllabus, and it is a more advantage to you if you have these two mandatory training, because sometimes if you are in a general industry, there are certain activities or special tasks or activity that are considered as construction, and there's a possibility that your client or the DOLE will require your establishment that the training of the personnel who will oversee or monitor this activity, construction works, should have a cost training, even though that you are in a general industry. It is your advantage if you have taken these two mandatory training, the BOSH SO2 and the cost training. Another requirement is you need to have a 48 hours advanced training. We offer the advanced training after taking the mandatory, the loss control management, plus the 1 day, 8 hours or 8 hours high rack. That is the next training after the mandatory. Because in BOSH and COSH, we focus on the sources or causes of accidents. In loss control management, we identify the programs. What are the programs that you will need to implement so that these accidents can be prevented? Or if not, when this happens, the result of the accident are acceptable, meaning the result are not major, are not serious. And additional to that is you need to have a 2 years actual experience. Your day one of actual experience will start on the day of your training, mandatory training, if you are already employed. But if you are not yet employed, and it is also okay that you need to take this training, but the day one of your actual experience will start on your first day of employment. That is the difference. Okay? And you need to so you need to have a 2 years actual experience before your HR can certify you as safety officer level 3 or safety practitioner. But we have different criteria if you want to be a DOLE accredited safety practitioner. But being a DOLE accredited safety practitioner today is not required in every establishment. Being a DOLE accredited for now is a self-career or for self-development, because the only requirement is the certified. And how to become a DOLE accredited safety practitioner? If you are a licensed engineer or whatever the profession it is, and you need to have a 3 years actual experience as safety officer, or one of your function is safety, and ensure that your function is safety, or safety is an additional work to you. You need to ensure that it was included in your job description or in your contract. So the reference here, so the DOLE will require you to submit your duties and responsibilities, and to support your claim that you are the safety officer or part of your work is safety. If you are a college graduate, you need to have a 4 years actual experience before you can apply to DOLE. But if you are a college undergrad and or high school, the highest level of attainment, and you can be also a safety officer, but you need to um, have 10 years actual experience. But do not worry because the years of relevant experience can be converted to training hours. But the main requirement here is you need to have at least 2 years of actual experience. If you want to pursue safety in the future, and we can guide you, we can help you with your with that, because as of April 30, the number of safety practitioners DOLE accredited in the Philippines are only 3,600 in all industries. And the DOLE accredited consultant are 398 so far since the start of accreditation in 2001. And I am one of the DOLE accredited safety consultant in the Philippines. I am one of the 398. Our numbers are only few, so we need you, right? And how to become a safety officer for the same requirement, yeah, as to the SO3, safety officer 3, you need to have a 40 hours mandatory training. And other than that, you need to acquire or to have an 80 hours advanced training. The 48 hours in the SO3 are credited to the 80 hours that you need to acquire for the SO4 requirements. And other than that, you need to have an aggregate of 320 training hours. The 80 hours additional advanced or specialized training are credited to the 320 hours that are requirement, right? And other than that, you need to have a 4 years actual experience as a safety officer 3. But the 4 years actual experience can be
Recording in progress.
the 4 years actual experience can be converted to
Recording
training
stopped.
hours. Okay, so if you have exceeded the 320 hours required for SO4 level, in every 80 hours training, it could be converted into 1 year of actual experience. And upon meeting all of this requirement, your HR and your employer will certify you as a safety officer level 4. Okay? And how to become a DOLE accredited safety consultant? This is different. The requirement here is you need to have a 5 years experience as a safety officer, a safety practitioner, and you need to have a 2 fields of specialization. For SO3, DOLE has a different accreditation because we have different industries. Like for example, me, I am previously a DOLE accredited practitioner for construction. They have also for services, fire safety, industrial hygiene. So they have we have different fields of accreditation, and also the Bureau of Fire practitioner is accredited. So you need to have these 5 years actual experience and a safety practitioner and 2 field of specialization, plus an aggregate of 480 training hours. To become a DOLE accredited consultant, it takes 10 years. So it takes 10 years to become a DOLE accredited consultant. But again, That is the um, that is the ideal, but it could become earlier upon meeting of the requirements and conversion. And it is your advantage if you are a PRC license, whatever the profession. The minimum requirement is a PRC license, right? Alright, and moving forward, and we can guide you how to become a DOLE accredited, because at the time that you are already a consultant, possible that I am already retired, right? So definition: occupational safety and health is a practitioner refers to a qualified safety officer, 3 or its equivalent, duly certified by DOLE, so meaning DOLE accredited. The guidelines here is the Department Order, DOLE Department Order number 16, series of 2001. And occupational safety and health consultant, like us, refers to a qualified SO4 or its equivalent duly certified by DOLE, meaning DOLE accredited. And since this is a skill like a PRC, or your accreditation can be renewed or shall be renewed every 3 years. And there are requirements before we can renew. In the accreditation for DOLE, you will undergo a series of panel interview. It has exam also, panel and interview, and you will present your programs implemented in your employment that that has improved the performance of your safety and health, right? And moving forward, worker refers to any member of the labor force. Even the president can be called as worker as long as your service was being paid by the company or by the employer. We are all called worker, even the president, because sometimes the president of the company is not the owner of the company, right? Workers of seminar, this is the mandatory seminar conducted by the safety officer and of the establishment or organization for all to all employees. We have a syllabus here, and it is recommended that the company's own safety officer will conduct this so that your module or presentation are customized based on your needs, based on the needs, concerns, based on your programs. But sometimes, but there are also companies that they preferred to hire external parties like us. So we have numerous clients or companies that they get our service to conduct this mandatory training, and that is acceptable. And the difference is also you will allocate a budget for this because you will engage an external. And in the event that the DOLE has inspected this establishment and they have found out that there are no safety officer assigned or deployed, and one of the findings is the 8 hours mandatory for the employer wanted to comply the soonest these findings of the DOLE, they engage external organization like us. So we can conduct as well these mandatory hours. And what we are using is the DOLE approved modules because the DOLE has regulated us, and they are the one who approves our modules as well. Right. And moving forward, we have the 4 rights of being a worker. The first one is workers' right to know. Information materials used pursuant to this section shall be made readily available and accessible. Even though that the OSH information, information materials should be accessible to all employees. We need to control these issuance or the request of these materials. We need to have a guidelines on how to request for this material or information so that we can monitor who is borrowing these materials. Right? And new hired workers shall be provided instructions. Who will provide the instruction to the new worker? The safety officer. The 8 hours mandatory. But for the specific work of our workers, you, being the supervisor, shall conduct this instruction or orientation. Specifically on the activity or the work that this personnel are assigned to. Orientations and trainings prior to start of work. Every time that there is a new work, new processes, new shift of work after an emergency, new materials, new equipment, new workplace, new legislation, the supervisor shall conduct the toolbox meeting prior to the start of the activity. The instructions, orientations, and trainings shall be properly documented. It should be recorded. You can use your attendance and you can have pictures as evidence that you have conducted a meeting prior to the start of the activity of your personnel and shall be included in the permanent records. And sometimes we have a database for this. The monitoring of all the pre-activity training conducted of each supervisor. The workers of seminar and other trainings, orientations as required by the employer and by any law shall be at no cost, meaning we should conduct the training and orientation during the official working hours of our people, compensable. It should not be conducted during their break time, during their rest day, and when they attended this training, they should be compensated. They should receive compensation. Right? And that is the requirement. Another right is the worker can refuse the work if the situation are dangerous, if the appropriate controls are not implemented, and there's an evidence that the nature of work could have resulted to major or serious accident, and it could have resulted to major property damage, that could have resulted to cessation of vital function of our organization. The worker may refuse the work. The supervisor shall not advise his subordinates to perform the work until all hazards or concerns are corrected with appropriate interventions or controls. Okay? And we cannot retaliate or remove or terminate our people just by refusing the work. And we have a penalty for this. So we will discuss this later on under the section 29 of this legislation. And workers can only return or resume to work if all of the hazards are controlled already based on the recommendation and assessment of your safety officer. So the safety officer must be knowledgeable about the control measures, appropriate control measures for this specific hazard identified in that workplace, right? And another rights of worker, right to report accident. All of us has the right to report accident. So we need to establish a guidelines or flow where to report when someone have witnessed an incident or accident, how to report, what are the means of reporting, and what will you report. And all of our personnel shall be aware of these reporting protocols. And us, being as the supervisor and safety officer, once we have received an information about an accident transpired in your workplace, we need to conduct an accident investigation immediately together with the safety. And there shall be no retaliation from the part of the employer pursuant to the reporting of any accident, because the workers or any employee can report the incident directly to DOLE. That is why we need to establish a guidelines when to report, what to report, how to report, and we need to entertain all of these reports. Upon notification, upon knowledge, we need to conduct an investigation to find the real causes. This is another workers' right to personal protective equipment. The cost of the PPE shall be part of the health, safety and health program, which is a separate pay item pursuant to Section 20 of this rule. For the construction industry, the ideal budget for PPE is 10%. For the general industry, since the activity are continuous and for monitoring, and there are no major changes of the activity or production, so the cost could be maintained, but ensure that yearly we need to study, or we need to upgrade and review our programs, specifically on the PPE and the issuance, and if there are additional activities, we need to check or have a risk assessment so that we can identify if there are additional or secondary PPE that we will be needing. All PPE shall be of the appropriate type, and it should be approved by DOLE. The DOLE shall test and approve all the PPE that we are using. We can get the testing certificate of this PPE from your supplier. Your supplier is the one responsible to acquire an approval or certification from DOLE. If you have a supplier, so you will ask for the testing certificate of all the PPE items that you have purchased from this supplier. And the usage of PPE, the issuance of a specific type of PPE that your worker will wear shall be based on the risk assessment conducted by the safety. Okay? And we can determine the appropriate type of PPE from the safety data sheet, from the work methodology, from the findings, previous findings, from the accident records, from the manual, the method statement, and from the violation records possible, from the database of our previous incident or accident. We can use this as guide in the formulation of a risk assessment for this certain activity. Section 12 talks about the occupational safety and health for your establishment. We have separate template for general industry and for the construction industry. And what is unique for the construction, in the construction industry, the safety program must be approved first by DOLE before day one of their construction activity will start. But for the general industry, you just need to submit this to DOLE near you or having jurisdiction of your workplace. Once they have accepted your program, this is good as approved. But we have a requirement that we need to update them every time that there's a new process or there is new legislations that will be our concern in the safety program. Covered workplaces shall develop and implement a suitable OSH program. We will be using the DOLE prescribed template, but you can also use your own template as long as the core elements of the safety program from the DOLE prescribed template are incorporated in your own safety program. With less than 10 workers and low-risk establishment with 10 to 50 workers, the OSH program, which shall be duly signed by the employer, must include at least the following. For low-risk, 50 below manpower and low-risk establishment, you are required to use the 16 elements template. But even though that you are low risk and your manpower exceeds 50 or 51 above, we are required to use the DOLE prescribed template with the 19 elements. That is the difference. And all of these are being discussed in the mandatory training, in Bosch training, and another template in the cost training. In cost training, we have the 22 elements of the safety program. But for the general industry, the 16 and the 19 elements, and they are different. Construction and general industry template are very different. For medium to high-risk establishment with 10 to 50 workers and low to high-risk establishment with 51 workers and above, those programs which shall be duly signed by the employer must include at least the following, the 19 elements. Also, it was not included, so I want to show you later on. Those program shall be communicated and it should be made readily available and accessible to all employees. But again, we need to control who borrows this document. And if we are not recording, we do not have control for this material, there's a possibility that it could be lost. And it shall be updated periodically. The one responsible who updates the safety program are the Health and Safety Committee, wherein the Health and Safety Committee composed of your employer, your safety officer, the supervisor of your workplace, workers representative, your health personnel, the safety officer of your subcontractors as well. And the company shall ensure that the core elements of OSH program are integrated. And I am suggesting or encouraging you that to use the DOLE prescribed template, the 16 or the 19, right? And ensure that the core elements are properly filled up or integrated. But again, since this is a safety program, we are tailor-fitting or customizing your OSH program basing on the nature of your establishment, on the kind of activities that you are doing. The safety officer, together with the employer, together with the supervisor and the worker, shall meet to prepare this safety program. And the company shall submit a copy of the OS program to the DOLE regional or provincial field office or satellite office. Well, whichever DOLE office are near to you or having the area of jurisdiction where your project or site or office are located, submit to the nearest DOLE office. Even this is a regional office, provincial office, field office, or satellite office, you submit your program and all together with the all DOLE reportorial forms or requirements to the nearest DOLE office. And a duly signed company commitment to comply OS requirements together with the company OS program using the prescribed template shall be considered approved upon submission. Once the DOLE official has accepted your safety program, it is considered or automatically approved or considered as approved, but except for the construction industry. Because for the construction industry, the evaluator will check first your documents, will study first all of the documents and the supporting documents attached to your program. It requires approval prior to the day one of your construction activity, right? And so for construction safety and health program, we shall need approval by DOLE prior to construction. And safety program has a timeline, has a completion date. And this is different from the general industry. Meaning, the safety program for construction has an expiration. And after the completion of the project, so this safety program are no longer valid. And OS programs in the pre-approved template may be modified by DOLE as necessary based on existing laws, regulations, rules, and other issuances, or upon validation of the program during inspection. If there is a modification made by the company, sometimes the one that we have previously submitted to DOLE are we cannot say that this is completely good for the entire duration or as your activity goes on. There's a possibility that there's changes or upgrading of the technology, of the equipment. So we need to upgrade or update your safety program. And if there's a modification, the personnel involved or the department personnel affected with this modification or changes, they shall be informed. The safety officer together with the together with the supervisor shall schedule these workers in a special orientation or training. The company shall review and evaluate the OS program at least once a year or as necessary. We review our program when there is a major changes in the process, when there is an accident transpired in your workplace, when there is a new law, new requirement from the client, or any other concerns that it requires the immediate revision or updating of their program to ensure that its objectives are met towards an improved safety and health performance. OS program, and so section 13 Occupational Safety and Health Committee. We have three types of safety and health for you. For the construction, they have only one. They have only one setting or type of safety committee. Occupational Safety and Health Committee, to ensure that the safety and health program is observed and enforced. A safety and health committee shall be organized in covered workplaces. This is for the low-risk establishment having 50 below employees. And the chairperson is the company owner or the manager. The secretary is always the safety officer or the assigned safety officer of that establishment. Member could be one from your staff or employee or one worker. The company manager or owner or one of the workers of the company shall undertake a first aid training. One of from these three member of the committee shall have the first aid training. It could be the manager, it could be the safety officer, or it could be the worker or the employee. For the medium to high risk, or even though that you are low risk, but you are having a 51 or more workers, this is the one that is applicable to you. The chairperson is the chairman or the representative. It could be the authorized managing officer. It could be the manager of that branch or of that area, the director. The secretary is the safety officer. And ex officio member, your health personnel, if they are applicable, because we require nurse, dentist, and physician. And it depends on the number of our workers. And sometimes, because you are a low-risk establishment, you are not required to have a nurse, as well as dentist and physician. And the engagement of dentist can be included in the memorandum of agreement with our hospital. Members, safety officer of your subcontractor or agency that directly reports to your organization. The safety officer, the supervisor of each department shall be identified and be included as a member of the Health and Safety Committee. Here, we have also a representative from workers. The representative of our worker here are selected through a simple votation. So, the OSH committee shall effectively plan, develop, oversee, and monitor the implementation of the OSH program. So, that is the function of the Health and Safety Committee. And monthly, they meet to discuss, to report the performance of safety and health, and to discuss what are the current issues and to know the performance of the safety and health in the workplace. So occupational safety and health for 2 or more establishments, this is applicable to mall. Or if you are renting an office in a building with different tenants, the presider or the chairperson is the building administrator. And you, as one who is tasked as the safety officer of your company, and you are renting an office in this building, you are part of the safety committee. You are one of the members. Safety officer is the secretary, safety officer of the building or complex appointed by the chairperson. Sometimes this is the counterpart of the building administrator. And the building administrator shall ensure that the joint OSH committee shall submit its organizational plans and minutes to the Dole Regional Office, copy furnished. And not necessary na to the Dole Regional Office. You can submit all your programs, updated programs, procedures, policies to DOLE office near your area or your establishment, or where your establishment has been registered. The safety officer, in the implementation of OSH program, we will first finish this part section before we will be having our half break. So in safety officer, in the implementation of safety program, the required safety officers shall be employed or designated with the following duties and responsibilities. We have four main functions based on the new legislation. Function of a safety officer. Number one is to oversee the overall management of OSH program in coordination with the OSH committee. Being the secretary of the OSH committee, we are the one responsible to prepare the minutes of the meeting, the venue, the time, and the schedule. We are the one who prepares the agenda to be reported by the safety committee. And also, being the safety officer, one of our main function in the organization is to act as the consultant or advisor of the establishment. We are the one who supervises the implementation of safety controls of our supervisors. We are the one assisting them, guiding them. What are the applicable legislations? What are the applicable law or guidelines established in our organization that we need to comply if you will be having this type of activity? What are the requirements for your people, for the equipment that you will be using for this kind of material? Or that is the one of the function of a safety officer. Frequently monitor. We have a routine activity, and the safety officer shall conduct a routine inspection. Every time there's a work, every time that there's a critical activity, we need as well to oversee these activities. Assist government inspector, sometimes or most of the time, we are being visited by LGU, by DOLE officials, and if the purpose of visit focuses on the safety and health, we, as the safety officer of your establishment, will face or assist this government representative. Even though that their focus or of inspection is for your subcontractor, you are the one who will face or assist this inspector if you are the general contractor or the main contractor. Another is issue work stoppage order. There are instances that upon knowledge, upon seeing an imminent danger or situation in the work area, we can verbally issue a work stoppage order. We can issue a WSO if the non-compliances of the operations of this group are recurring or not yet done given the deadline that you have agreed with the supervisor. The one responsible for the compliances of these findings and rectifications and our recommendations is the supervisor, who are directly supervising this area of their concern and your personnel. How to become a safety officer and what are the labels? Level of safety officer. We have the SO1, the SO2 that we have already discussed under the definition of terms. So this we want to reiterate. Safety officer of all workplace must possess the necessary training, the mandatory. You can only get the mandatory training to DOLE, and it's an accredited training organization like us. And safety officer 1, mandatory 8-hour orientation course and 2 hours training of training. The advantage when you take the SO1 training is that the 8 hours module, that is the syllabus for the mandatory 8 hours training. Or that is the advantage. Plus 2 hours training. We will give you what are the preparations of before conducting a training, how to formulate the objective, how to run the training, how to evaluate your training. So we will talk all about those in the 2 hours training. But we have also a comprehensive training for trainers. That is the 24 hours training of trainers. And that is the requirement for a safety officer if they wanted to engage in the training under DOLE or DOLE accredited. So just like us, that is the prescribed training for us before we can engage to conduct mandatory trainings and advanced training. Safety officers too, you need to have a 40 hours basic cost training, and that is the BOSH or cost. For the maritime, that is MOSH. We have also that. Okay? And another, safety officer 3, mandatory training of 40 hours. That is the SO2, COS or BOSH or MOSH. And you need to have additional 48 hours of advanced training. Another requirement as prescribed by the OSI standard. What are these requirements? Your proof that you have functioned as safety officer. So it is a document. Like for example, the safety program that you have signed and prepared. The drill reports that you have prepared. The accident investigation report. The report on inspections, violations of your personnel, minutes of the meeting of the Health and Safety Committee, other programs that you have implemented, prepared, or established. Those are the evidences that will support you so that your safety, your HR and employer can certify you. And these requirement documents are also the needing documents if we apply for DOLE accreditation as safety practitioner. Additional to these other requirements are the DOLE reports, the WARMA, the WAIR, that is the IP6, or that is the form of DOLE for accident, incident, or illness report. We have the annual medical report or the OH47 of DOLE forms. We have also the minutes of the meeting of the Health and Safety Committee, the report on safety organization, the composition of your Health and Safety Committee, the table of your organization, and we have also the AADR, the annual exposure data report. So we have a simple computation of frequency rate and severity rate. All of these are being discussed and introduced in the mandatory training for safety officers. This is not part of this material. And other than that, you need to work or to have an actual experience of the safety officer. Right? So another safety officer level 4 mandatory training, 40 hours. This is what you have taken in to become an SO2 level. 80 hours advanced training, the 48 hours from the SO3 are credited here. So The advanced training here that we recommend is the safety program audit. Here in the training of a safety program audit, or the SPA or the SPA, we rate or evaluate how effective the programs that you have established. We will rate all of those in an aggregate of 320 training hours. And remember, for every 80 hours of training excess from the 320 hours, that is convertible to 1 year of relevant experience. And like for example, you have take you have taken your mandatory training this year, 2022. By 2024, you can now become a SO3. And by 2024, you can be also a safety officer because through trainings, it can credited or it can compensate on the training hours. If you want to um, become or to pursue the field of safety, those are some of the adjustment. Other requirements are the same in SO3, Safety Officer Level 3. Right? So minimum classification of safety officer, the number of safety officer, and the level required for safety officer will be based on some uh, considerations or factors. Number one here is the number of workers in that organization or in that area. Low risk, medium risk, and high risk. As your risk level goes higher, so the requirement or level of immediate or entry safety officer becomes higher, the qualification. And as the number of your workers increases, the number of safety officer and the level of safety officer also increases, right? And sometimes one of the findings of DOLE is that you have a safety officer level 1, but during the inspection, you have more than 100 employees and you are under low risk. So the requirement here is SO2. What will happen if you do not have a certified safety officer based on the requirement? You can have a violation. But DOLE gives us a timeline for us to comply. And after the deadline, you have not complied, then the penalty will start. Right? So they give us a timeline to comply. And so we need to comply. And even though that we have the capacity to pay the penalty, but I am suggesting that just comply, right, with the requirements of the legislation. And it is very important that our assigned safety officer are knowledgeable about these requirements, right? So that is why it is the requirement that you need only to take the mandatory training to DOLE and its accredited institution. So as the number increases, the number of safety officer also increases, and the level of requirement or level of safety also increases. In the event that you are low risk, it says that safety officers engage in micro and small establishment, 9 below manpower and low risk, shall be engaged in safety programs, including other tasks designated to him. Meaning, the employer or one of your employee can be designated, or one of the roles are safety officer, and that is acceptable for low to medium risk. Okay? And in the case of a contractor or subcontractor, at least one safety officer. If you have an agency, if you have a contractor, it is a requirement that each agency or subcontractor must have their own safety officer as your counterpart. it is not the responsibility to oversee the work or activity of your contractor, because it is a requirement that each agency or subcontractor must have their own safety officer. Unless that the main contractor hires safety officers and to be deployed to each agency or subcontractor. The engagement of safety officer like us, consultant, shall be allowed. We are allowed to engage as a freelance safety officer, and in the event that this company are having a hard time to hire safety officer, and they do not want to pay for the penalty, so that is one of the solution. But provided our engagement in your organization shall not be last to 1 year, but it could be renewable. There are sometimes there are some establishments or organizations that we get our service. Currently, we have a companies that we serve as the consultant, right? And any questions before we continue? So let's have a half break. So we are down to last for 14 slides of our presentation. So let's have our break first. And I believe we have a program and to be headed by your organizers. Thank you, everyone.
So yun nga po, no? So magkakaroon mo tayo ng break. So magkakaroon muna po tayo ng icebreaker. So before that, gusto ko muna ma-check kung active pa rin po ba ang mga participants natin, kung nandito pa rin po ba kayo. Can you give me any reactions sa ating comment section below if you're still here? Just maybe like a thumbs up or a heart or something. Just para naman ma-aware ako na nandiyan pa rin kayo. Diba? Magkakaroon tayo ngayon ng icebreaker. Okay, so para naman magkakaroon tayo ng unting fun time sa ating webinar. Yon! Ganyan. Madami nakikipag-cooperate sa ating comment section below. Okay. Yon. At dahil marami ang nagpa-participate sa ating comment section. I'm just gonna ready ko lang. Yun. Diba? Mas active kayo ngayong ngayong tawag dito? Ngayong icebreaker kaysa kanina na nagpapakita ng logo ng schools. But still, very good job with that. Okay. Yan. Sana ganyan pa rin yung mga sana ganyan pa rin kayo ganyan pa rin kayo ka-active later on. Okay, so I guess let's start our icebreaker. Okay. So guys, yung mechanics natin is guess the title of the song with only emojis and symbols as clue. Okay, so explain ko lang to Mostly alam niyo naman na to. So guess the title of the song, pero yung papakita lang natin is emoji. Okay, so may corresponding answer is about emoji na yun. Okay, so pabilisan lang to guys. This is just, itong icebreaker na to, this is just for fun. So, yun. I hope everyone would cooperate in this. Then magkakaroon tayo ng surprise later on. Okay? So start na natin ang ating first. Yan. Ano to? Yeah. What is this? Drop your answers lang. Ano yan? Baby. Bad romance. Go ahead. Kaya nyo yan, guys. Shape of you hindi po. Okay, sige lang guys. Bahay kubo, no pets allowed. Hindi po. Boys, sun and moon, easy on me. Hindi din po. All too well, no. But those are very good guesses. But Buduts 1 hour loop. Hindi po. Ay. Okay, so back and forth, shape of my heart. Okay. Wait lang. Bibigay pa tayo ng clue? Wait lang. Okay. Alright, alright. Ano siya? Ano? Okay, clue tayo, clue. Sige. Yung first letter ng title niya is C. What? Wala na. Okay. Wait. Bakit naging ganun? Okay, so mali po yung poster. But it is colorblind by Makita. Okay. Okay, never mind. So yung... Wait. Okay, wala na. Okay, never mind. Let's move on to our second. Okay, yung box, guys, ano talaga yun? Parang nag-error lang yung emoji. Kaya nalito kayo dun sa box. Okay, warm up. Tama. Thank you. Okay, warm up yun. Okay, so next na tayo. OMG. Okay, wait lang guys. Nagkakaroon tayo ng problem with the emoji because those are not supposed to be boxes. Wait lang. I'll. Okay, so guys, ano to let me just explain. Itong mga boxes na to, so this is not supposed to be boxed. It's supposed to be rounded. Katulad nitong like yung first circle na nakikita nyo, but with different colors. Okay? So these are all circles, but with different colors. Pero nagka-ano lang siya, nagka-problem lang doon sa pinaka-screen. Hindi po. Okay, ano to? Let me see. Clue is ano lang siya. Yung title niya only has 1 number and 1 letter. 1 number and 1 letter. Okay, we're nakuha na. It's 2. Tama ba? Yes, it's 2U. Nakuha na po ni Kuya Mark. Yup, it's 2U by David Guetta. That Justin Bieber. Okay, hulaan nyo na lang kung bakit U yung colorful circles. Okay. Ano lang po to? For now, this is just for fun. Itong ano po natin na to. If you're going to ask about prizes, hulaan. Okay, very good. Nakuha na din ni Kuya Mark. Is yung U is never mind. Check na lang sa comment section. Mahirap i-explain. Okay. So, nasaan na? Okay. So, mamaya ulit tayo sa icebreaker. Now, this is the fun part kasi dahil active kayo sa ating comment section below, may chance kayo para manalo ng ating raffle draw for today. Alright? So, our prize is actually 250 pesos GCash, and we'll be having a number roulette. So, kung saan nag-end yung number na yon, we will check it in our list of participants na nag-register. Yes, and then, yun nga, kasi we have to check, we have to make sure na nandito kayo, present kayo sa ating webinar for today. And kung saan man kayo nanonood, like if you're in Zoom, in our live FB, or in our live YouTube, make sure to message our i-message nyo lang kami sa org namin, or any signs, pwede din kayo mag-comment dito kung present ba kayo. Okay, para malaman namin kung nandito kayo and nagpa-participate. Okay, so let's start sa ating number roulette. Wala pa po. Wala pa po. Titignan po natin yung number. Okay, so may nakabantay na po sa FB, may nakabantay na din sa YouTube, and ako na po tagabantay sa Zoom. Alright, let's start with the number. Okay, so it is 120. So, 120 na to. I'm sorry, so sa team ko, can someone just pa-type po yung name? Because I can't see it on my screen. Because it's blurry in my end. So, okay, so we have Brian M. Estavillo from Dimsu Mlo. Nandito po ba kayo? Kuya Ryan? Ay, yung magpe-present lang po is yung tatawagin ko na name dun sa raffle. Okay. Nandito po ba kayo, Kuya Ryan? Or I just nalagpasan ko yung mga nag-present? Okay. Kuya, can you just mag-comment po ulit kayo? Ever here? Okay, so wala daw po Kuya Ryan. Okay, so wala siya. So let's move on to our next number kasi wala po si Kuya Ryan. Okay, so sino to? Again, yung magpa-present lang po sa ating comment section is yung tatawagin ko po na name. Para po hindi po tayo magkagulo. Okay? Alright. Okay, so let's see. The number is 293. So, sino tong 293 na to? Again, yung matatawag dito will be the lucky winner of a 250 pesos cash prize. Okay, so we have Emerson S. Silo Jr. from Governor Alfonso D. Tan College. Are you here? Kuya Emerson? Are you here po? Ayun! So, present. Alright. So, congratulations po because you are one of the lucky winner of the 250 pesos e-cash prize. Okay, so meron pa po tayong isa pa po. Okay, who will be the lucky winner? Okay, so we have 522. Sino itong 522 na to? We have yan. Wait lang po because it's blurry in my side. Okay, so we have Lian Damisil from Dimsu Emlo. Andito po ba kayo? Can you raise your hand po if you're here? Ate Lian? Are you here po? No? Raise hand. Kung nasa FB po kayo, mag-comment lang po kayo. Sa YouTube, comment lang din po. Okay. So our team said na wala. Okay, so meron na naman tayo another chance for a lucky winner. So roll the numbers. Yan kay Kuya Emerson po, you can just please message our email sa mga contact details niyo po for the receiving of prize. Okay, so we have 874. 874. So sino tong participant 874? So we have I think this is Joshua Galak from Golden Gate Colleges. Are you here po? Kuya Joshua? Can you raise your hand or comment anything so I would know if you're present? Okay, there we go. So congratulations po because you also won the 250 pesos. The Gcash prize. Okay. So dahil nga meron na tayong 2 winners ng 250 pesos prize, then stay tuned kasi magkakaroon ulit po tayo ng raffle draw that will commence later on. So stay tuned, huwag kayo alis because meron pa tayong mga prizes na naghihintay. Okay? And that being said, I hope na shake kayo doon or nagising kayo doon sa segment na yon because I will be turning the virtual floor back to Sir Val. Sir?
Thank you so much, ma'am. Sumagot din ako eh. Hindi ako nakuha. Sayang. Diba? Thank you so much. And can I ask permission to share the screen? Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone. And let's continue. Nice icebreaker. So let's proceed. Section 15. This is for the occupational health. The requirement here is different from our occupational health personnel, and but also the duties of our health personnel or the deployment will be based on the number of manpower as well. But here, their duties can be into parts, part-time or full-time. Will depend on the number of employees in the classification of our industries. Just like the safety officer, they have a specific training before they will be hired or engaged as a health personnel in the private sector. Occupational health personnel and facilities, covered workplaces shall have occupational qualified occupational health personnel such as certified first aiders, nurses, dentists, and physicians, duly complemented with the required medical supplies, equipment, and facilities. Here, for the medical supplies, it was not included here in the guidelines, but we have a guideline for this. Before, it was included in the OSCE standard or the yellow book. That is that you can refer the number of our supplies from the table 47 of our OSCE standard. The number of health personnel, which may be classified as full-time or part-time, equipment and facilities, and the amount of supply shall be proportionate to the total number of workers and to the risk classification. When do we need a nurse, a doctor, a dentist? When do we need a clinic or infirmary or bed? And how many number of medicines are we needing? And do we need to or purchase a wheelchair, a basket stretcher, oxygen, and any other facilities, that will be based on the number of our workers and the risk classification of your industry. And sometimes in the low-risk establishment, they only need a first aider and first aid kit. And training for OH personnel, occupational health personnel, just like us, safety officer, they have also need to undergo a mandatory training. For the first aider, standard first aid training taken from any of these four agencies, the DOLE, the DOH, the TESDA, Red Cross, and the Bureau of Fire. And for the nurses, we have a BOSS for nurses, or training course for nurses. We have a DOLE accredited safety training organization who are the STO that who offers this training. For the dentist, they shall need to have a 40 hours basic OSH training course. And for the physician, they have the 56 hours training. So why do we need to have this training other than the PRC license? Because there's a possibility that their area or previous engagement is in the public sector, and they will take a new career in the private sector. So they need to undergo this type of training. And this training are tailor-fitted for the private sector. Right? So we have also a DOLE accredited training organization who are the one conducting this training for our dentist and physician. But they can also have this training at UP College of Health, UP Diliman, UP Manila, but the DOLE accredited training organization here is the PCOM, the Philippine College of Occupational Medicine. The number of the health personnel will be based on the risk classification of your industry and the number of your workers. So it says here, when we say part-time, your doctor or nurse work schedule is half day or every 4 hours, or whole day but every other day. That is the part-time. And for the full-time, the nurse and or doctor shall require to work 8 hours a day and for the whole week declared as normal working days. So that is the requirement. For the dentist, because we have a lacking number of dentists, and some establishments are having a hard time to look for a full-time dentist, the service of a dentist are already included in the memorandum of agreement of this company with the hospital. And additional for that is that for when we reach the number of workers 1,000 above, we need to have a hospital inside the workplace. But the standard also says that the establishment of a hospital can be waived provided that you have a memorandum of agreement with your nearest hospital, and the patient can be transferred. So this is the requirement of our facilities and the number of facilities, the equipment, and as well as for the hospital. For the hospital, 1,001 or more. And this can be waived as long as you have a memorandum of agreement with the nearest hospital, provided that the patient can be transferred not more than 25 minutes of travel by any means of transportation, by land, by water, or by air. And the location of the nearest hospital is not more than 5 kilometers radius of your workplace. Here in Manila, we have numerous number of hospitals, so it's not a problem. But in a very secluded area, like for example, for the offshore, there's instances that the law or the LGU requires, or even the DOLE and having the jurisdiction requires this establishment to have a hospital inside the workplace. The cost of safety program, it should be a separate pay item or should be integrated in our yearly budget allocation. And for the construction, it is a separate pay item, but it should not be seen on the miscellaneous item. It should be a separate pay item. And ideally, the recommended percentage of safety program should be 10% of the total project cost. For example, if your project if your total project cost is 100 million, the 10 million of your budget shall be allocated to the safety alone. And take note, PPE item is not part of the item under the safety and health. It is a separate pay item also, the PPE. Visitorial power of the DOLE, the DOLE has a jurisdiction or authority to inspect all our establishment. And it is not announced to us, unannounced, but for the inspector, we need to have a schedule. And we call this a travel mission or mission order issued by the immediate supervisor of this DOLE inspector. And this is the one document that this inspector need to present before we can allow them to enter our premises. If the inspector was not able to present or show a mission order, you have the right to refuse this personnel to enter your establishment, right? And so because of this new legislation, the number of the establishment that has been visited by DOLE and even the PSA, the Philippine Statistics Authority, has increases. So, and we do not know when the inspectors will be visiting us and to inspect our requirements. So as early as now, or if you are already employed, or if you are the employer, or you are managing a people, or if you are having your OGT right now in a certain company, and if you think that your company have not complied what is stated here in the guidelines, you can advise them to start complying all the applicable guidelines to your establishment. Okay? And for when the inspector has done the inspection, they will give you a report. Sometimes the DOLE or the inspector, for every violation, they will give us a timeline to comply, or as an overall timeline, they give us maximum of 90 days. But it does not mean that you will wait for 90 days before you will submit your compliances. If one item is already been complied, you need to submit it to DOLE or report to monitor the progress, or to ensure, or for them to know that there's a progress on the actions taken, or on the compliance based on their findings. So mostly after 3 months, the DOL inspector will go back at your workplace to check, or the DOL inspector will give you an email or letter of conference, or notice of conference or meeting to meet with all the parties, representative of your organization and the DOLE, to meet and to discuss what are the compliances on the reports that you have received. And this meeting will be the basis for our DOLE regional director if a penalty will be issued to your organization. Upon receiving of this penalty for violation, the counting of your penalty will start. That is why we encourage you to, as early as now, if you are already an employee or employed, to start complying with this standard. And it is a requirement. That is why it is a requirement that for safety, for every designated safety officer, they should acquire the mandatory training, so that all of this will be properly discussed to them, to this person, tasked or assigned as the safety officer. Prohibited acts and its corresponding penalties. Should there be 2 or more non-compliances, all penalties shall be imposed. Here we have more than 15 identified common violations in a workplace, provided that the total penalty, if all of these 15 violations committed by the company or establishment, the maximum penalty per day is 100,000. The penalty shall be computed on a per day basis until full compliance reckoned from the date of the notice of violation or service of the compliance order to the employer. So the notice of violation or the serving of the compliance order to the employer shall be given to you after the notice of conference meeting was conducted. And the regional director shall, after due notice and hearing, impose the appropriate administrative fines, taking into consideration the damage or injury, cost and risk involved, including the severity and frequency of those violation and the size of the establishment. So the timeline to comply will be based on the degree of the violation. Sometimes for imminent compliances, mostly the timeline is a week or 2 weeks. And sometimes if the compliances takes time, the DOLE recommends 1 month or 2 months. But it will not exceed 3 months to comply. So these are some of the violations with corresponding penalties that we need to know. Any willful failure or refusal of an employer, contractor, or subcontractor to comply with the following standards below, or with the compliance order issued by the Secretary of Labor and Employment or his/her authorized representative, shall be penalized of the administrative fines. Your establishment is not registered to DOLE. So the DOLE having jurisdiction of your workplace or your work site. That is 20,000. And application of DOLE registration is free. And this is lifetime. And if you do not have this, 20,000. Provision of safety instruction or orientation prior to work, the supervisor was not conducting pre-activity, toolbox meeting every time there's an activity and before the start of the activity. That is 20,000. What are your evidences? The pictures of conducting the toolbox meeting, the attendance record of all the personnel who have attended your orientation or training. Those are some of the evidences. Provide workers training. You have a first aid personnel assigned. You have a safety officer assigned. But the problem here is they do not have the mandatory training. So still, that is a violation. You have assigned a safety personnel but has no safety training. So that is still a violation. 25,000. You did not conduct mandatory training, the 8 hours, as part of the duties of a safety officer. That is still 25,000. Provision of safety signage and devices, 30,000. Provision of medical supplies, equipment and facilities, 30,000. The establishment did not submit reports to DOLE on a frequency. That is 30,000. Another is provision of safety officer. This is different from the previous. The 25,000 penalty from the previous is you have a designated personnel. But the problem is they do not have the mandatory training. But here, you have no appointed or dedicated safety officer. Okay, and that is 40,000. Provision of certified personnel or professionals required by OSH standard, meaning the requirement is SO3 or SO4, but your company only has SO1 or SO2. So there's a possibility that a penalty will impose to you. That is why these companies engage a consultant to act and to serve as the certified personnel in the meantime. While we are hiring someone, while we giving training to this personnel, so that is the function mostly of a consultant. Establishment of a safety and health committee. You do not have a committee. 40,000. You do not have a safety program tailor-fitted to your workplace. That is 40,000. You do not have a guidelines, safe operating procedure for a specific activity that is considered as high risk. Like for example, working in a confined space, heavy equipment operation, working at heights, lifting operations, working with electricals, and working near power lines, right? Working in an engine room, in a boiler, doing a maintenance or installation, assembly of this material. So those are some critical activities which requires a written standard operating procedure. And that is 40,000. Provision of sanitary and welfare facilities. Like for example, drinking station, water station, mess hall, locker or changing area, CRs, accommodation area, depends on the nature of your activity and establishment. So our facilities also different from construction, different from general industry, from hospital setting. Use of approved or certified devices. You do not issue standard PPE, and that is 50,000. And if you issue PPE, but the cost was deducted to the worker's pay slip, and that is 50,000. Compliance with DOLE issued work stoppage order. The DOLE issued a work stoppage order, but still your establishment or company resumes working. What are the instances where DOLE issues us a work stoppage order for repeatedly violating the standards? When there's a major accident that have resulted to fatality or permanent total disability. Those are the instances where DOLE issues a work stoppage order to the establishment. Compliance with other OSHI standard, the yellow book. If you have a safety officer but not trained, there's a possibility that this person is not aware of the applicable legislations that your establishment needs to comply. That is why we need to give them training, the appropriate training, the mandatory training. Additional penalty, when the violation exposes the worker to death, serious injury, or serious illness, the imposable penalty shall be 100,000. This is in addition to the penalties that was discussed in the previous slide. And an employer, contractor, or subcon who is found to have repeatedly violated the same prohibited act shall be penalized. Like for example, the DOLE have inspected your workplace last year and you were given timeline to comply and you have completed. And after 2 years, the DOLE conducts another inspection to your workplace basing on the previous findings. It was repeatedly. The findings are the same, so it will incur you an additional 50%. Like for example, you have from the previous, your maximum is 100,000 because most of the violations was not complied on the given time, and for the second or the next audit, your penalty will incur another or additional 50,000. Another instances that your company will be given with a penalty for violation if any of these following events will happen. If any of the following acts is present under non-compliance, the penalty of 100,000 pesos administrative fine shall be imposed. This is separate from the penalty if we have a fatality, permanent total disability, and in addition to the previous non-compliances. The first one is repeated obstruction. You refuse to allow, you did not allow the DOLE representative or any LGU to enter your workplace. That is 100,000. Another is you help them in the investigation, with the investigation, but you present them with misrepresented documents. And another is making retaliatory measures. You terminate your people without due process. You are not giving the rendered the fee for the rendered services, especially the overtime of your people. You did not give them the mandatory benefits stated in the labor code. So those are some of the measures. No? There are some of the instances that you will have or receive additional penalty. And that is the section 28. So prohibited acts and its penalties, corresponding penalties, fines collected pursuant to this rule shall be utilized for the operation of FOS initiative. The fines or the collections will be placed in a central location or central fund, and this fund will be used for the micro and small enterprises for them to comply as well with the requirements of the standards. Because as we all know, 95% of our establishment in the Philippines are under the medium and small establishment, micro establishment, right? And micro and small medium establishment. In the Philippines, we are more than 1 million establishments, right? And 95 of those are from the micro industries, right? So that is the effectivity. So this is the last slide. Effectivity, this rule shall take effect 15 days after its publication in a national newspaper. And it was published January 9, 2019. So the effectivity date of this Department Order 198-18 is January 24, 2019. Right? And this ends my presentation. And thank you very much about the Department Order 198-18. Thank you very much. I will now return the screen room to the moderator for your questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Peter. So before we head on sa ating, what's this? Before we head on to our raffle draw, magsimula muna tayo ng question and answer portion. Okay? So our open forum is now open. So you know the drill, guys. You can drop your questions down below in our comment section. Yan. And yun, we will have all of our participants have the opportunity para po to ask any questions that they want regarding po sa topic po na diniscuss po ni Engineer Jubel. Po, may questions po kayo, huwag po kayong mahihiya. You can drop it in our comment section below.
Miss Erica?
Yes po.
Yeah. Siguro before mag-question yung mga gustong mag-question, I would like to add dun sa lecture ni Sir Jobel kanina. Okay. Yeah,
I'll
okay,
give the virtual floor to you po.
Okay. I will not open my camera kasi alam niyo naman nasa bahay.
Po, sure po.
So please my apologies, I cannot open my cam, but I hope you can hear me clear. Okay.
Yes po, ma'am. Loud and clear.
Thank you. Unang-una is yung the conduct of mandatory orientation. Okay. As much as possible, ayaw ng DOLE na masyadong mahal ang pag-comply ng labor laws. Doon, ang sinasabi nating labor laws is the General Labor Standards and the Occupational Safety and Health Standards, which is Yung occupational safety and health standards is ito yung diniscuss ni Sir Jobel kanina. Okay, so doon sa part na orientation ng mga workers, DOLE allowed that the safety officer, the designated safety officer of the company, can conduct the orientation. And we say all, so ibig sabihin, if you have 100 employees, dapat ang makita ni inspector during the conduct of inspection, ang nasa attendance ay 100. Hindi pwedeng 99, hindi pwedeng 98. Kasi kung nakita nila 99, ibig sabihin may isang kulang, then pwede nilang i-cite na may kulang doon sa pag-conduct ng orientation. And this is mandatory. So tama si Sir Jobel kanina, this is mandatory. Hindi pwedeng may maiwan o di kaya kung may bagong pasok na employee, dapat ma-orient siya kaagad. Okay, so yun yung isa. Minsan, yung mga companies, baka sa tingin nila ay parang nagsama na yung mga employees sa kanilang safety officer at hindi sila naniniwala sa kanilang safety officer. The company can opt to ask other safety practitioners or safety consultants who will conduct the mandatory orientation. Why? What is the meaning? What is the difference between a safety officer and safety practitioner? Okay. A safety officer is a safety officer acting or implementing the safety rules inside the company. But he is not accredited by DOLE. Whereas, pag safety practitioner, accredited yan. Now, when in conducting orientations or lectures, ang isang safety officer cannot lecture outside his company. Okay? Ang pwede lang mag-conduct sa ibang company o di kaya outside ng kanyang pinagtatrabahuan ay isang safety practitioner. So, ibig sabihin, isa siyang accredited na safety officer. Okay? Pwede rin na safety consultant. Okay? So, kung sakaling ayaw ng company o di kaya hindi siya kampante sa pag-lecture ng kanyang safety officer at gusto niya na mas talagang maintindihan ng mga workers inside the company yung lecture, then pwede nang sabihin na kunin natin yung isang STO doon o di kaya yung COSH consultant doon sa example si Sir Jobel, pwede natin silang kunin yung kanyang STO, yung kanilang consultant doon, pwede silang mag-lecture sa atin. Pwede yon. Pero hindi sinasabi ni DOLE, hindi minamandate ni DOLE, hindi mandatory na kailangang mag-hire sila o di kaya mag-import sila ng speaker. Pwede naman talaga na ang safety officer ng company ang mag-conduct ng orientation na yon. Okay? So yon. Now, when it comes to all, like the proper PPE to be used, kung sino yung magle-lecture ng program ng company, sino ang magkakandak ng risk assessment sa company. 'Di ba tayo as engineer bago tayo mag-design, we have to know things. Okay, gaano ba kalaki yung i-design natin, anong capacity ang kailangan, yung mga ganon. Ganon din sa safety program. Bago ka gumawa ng safety program, i-assess mo muna kung ano yung mga risk, yung mga delikado inside the company. And with this, knowing this one, like the number of workers, ano yung activities, risky ba talaga yan, gaano ba kataas yung risk, gaano kadelikado yung mga activities, ilang shift ba ilang shift ang shift ng mga workers ang ginagawa sa company, baka may night shift kasi pag night shift mas natin na delikado yon. So ano ang kailangan pag may night shift? Of course, lighting, proper lighting, because if we do not have proper lighting, then doon tayo magkakaroon ng aksidente. So yun yung dapat na alamin ng isang safety officer bago siya gumawa ng program. So risk assessment. Ngayon, sino ang gagawa ng risk assessment? So yan si safety officer. Okay. Pero yung paggawa ng program, hindi naman siya, kailangan siya lang kasi we have a safety committee wherein kasama siya doon. Okay? So yung kasama sa kanyang assessment is the presence of risk. And then after assessing the presence of risk is yung mga PPEs, yung mga PPEs na kailangan. So sila din ang magsasabi nun. This is our activity, so this is the proper PPE that we need. Kasi train ang mga safety officers. Kasama yan sa training kung ano yung mga PPEs na kailangan. Okay? So tama si Sir Jobel, sabi niya kanina na kailangan itong mga PPEs na to ay free, expressly provided under DO 198 that these PPEs are free. Hindi ito dapat binabayaran ng mga employees. And this PPEs also must be tested and approved by DOLE. So sinong nagte-test and nag-a-approve? Meron po tayong Occupational Safety and Health Center sa Quezon City, sa Agham Road. Sila po yung nagte-test ng mga PPEs natin. Okay? Para makita natin kung anong level ang capacity, like the hard hat. Gaano ba kabigat ng malalaglag na bagay sa hard hat na yan bago siya mabutas? Tinetesting po yan. So para naman hindi kailangang magpa-test pa ang isang company ng hard hat niya, ang mas maganda siguro ay tignan niya yung mga ano ba yan, yung quality, hindi quality, yung parang brand ng kanyang hard hat sa listahan ng Occupational Safety and Health Center para yun na lang ang bibilhin niya. Kaysa sa bibili siya tapos magpa-test siya, paano kung babagsak, diba? So bibili siya ulit ng mga bago. So mas maganda, bago siya bibili, tingnan niyo muna yung mga pumasa sa center. And then yun na lang ang bibilhin niya para mas mabilis. And alam niyo ba na pag ang mga DOLE inspectors ang umikot at ang nakita nilang violation ay violation on PPEs, ang binibigay lang natin na period to correct is 3 days only. 3 days from the conduct of inspection. So, ano yung possible na violation when it comes to PPE? Okay, unang-una, walang PPE. Hindi binigyan ng PPE yung worker. Pangalawa, binigyan ng PPE yung worker pero hindi DOLE approve yung PPE. Okay, pangatlo, binigyan ang worker ng PPE pero binawas ito sa kanyang sweldo. So yun yung mga possible na violation under PPEs. Bakit 3 days ang binigay sa PPE? Well, in occupational safety and health, okay, we have the hierarchy of controls. Ano yung pinaka mataas na parang hierarchy when it comes to controlling the presence or the happening of an accident? Unang-una is engineering control. Okay? Ano yung engineering control? Like may umiikot na na gear, 'di ba? Open na rotating machine. So, ano yung pinaka the best na safety measure para walang ma-aksidente doon? Engineering, anong gagawin ng engineering? Lalagyan ng shield, ng guard para hindi lumapit ang kamay or any part of the body of a worker. So yun yung engineering control. Next is administrative control. Of course, administrative, yun yung sinasabi natin na program. Okay? Yun yung dapat na i-support ng management. Okay? And then the last one is the PPE. So, hindi lagi ang PPE ang sagot sa mga aksidente na to. PPE is the last defense when it comes to complying the occupational safety and health standards. Okay, pinaka-last yun. And dapat ganon ang paggawa ng ating safety and health program. The company safety and health program may have a template, posted yan sa website ng DOLE sa mga regional offices, and the main template is posted with the Bureau of Working Conditions, to which I am connected. So kami yung program manager ng yung implementation and enforcement of this occupational safety and health standards. So meron tayong template dyan. At yung na-discuss na yon kanina under 198, sundan lang nila yung template na yon and makukomply nila yung DO 198. Okay? It is just a template. It is just a guide. Okay? Kasi may mga iba doon na hindi naman applicable sa isang company kung anong klaseng company yan. Kasi yung DO 198 natin is naka-program siya o di kaya naka-design siya sa isang construction industry. So minsan, yung mga ibang terms doon is not applicable to other kinds of industries like in a manufacturing, in a simple services, masyadong mataas yung requirement doon. But may mga naman tayo, just follow the template, the sequence, and then pwede nating yung level ng compliance is much lower kesa sa mga ibang kinds of industries. Okay, so yun yung isa doon. Now, I would like also to emphasize that in DO 198, wala tayong sinasabing doon, accreditation. Okay? Nung ginagawa yung DO 198 or the Republic Act 11058, the Senate, during the deliberation, the senators asked the DOLE kung ilan ang accredited safety officers the whole Philippines, for the whole Philippines. Okay. Kasi before Republic Act 11058, if we say, if the standards mention of a safety officer, the safety officer means is the meaning of a safety officer is an accredited safety officer. Okay, accredited lahat yan. Okay, now nung nag-propose tayo ng batas, tinanong tayo, ilan ba ang accredited safety officer sa buong Pilipinas? Okay, wala pang 1,000 nung time na ginagawa yung batas. So sabi ng Senate, then we cannot impose that in the Republic Act 11058. Kaya tinanggal ang accreditation sa DO 198. Okay? So, yun yung SO1, SO2, SO3, and SO4. Walang accreditation dyan. And sino ang magsasabi na ikaw ay SO2 or SO3? It's not DOLE anymore. Okay? It's the HR or the employer who will hire you. Kasi for the past years, nagrereklamo ang mga companies. Sabi nila, nag-hire kami ng isang accredited na safety officer. We call it safety practitioner. And then hindi naman niya alam kung paano gumawa ng program. So sabi ng DOLE, okay, kung yan ang sinasabi nyo, then bahala kayo mag-hire ng safety officer na gusto nyo, o di kaya kampante kayo, o di kaya sa assessment nyo ay magaling. So, binigay natin sa mga employers ang pagsabi na, ikaw ay aming safety officer 2, ikaw ay aming safety officer 3. Di kaya ikaw ang aming consultant. So, binigay yan ng DOLE. Ang ginawa lang natin sa department order is, ito yung mga requirements, ito yung mga credentials ng isang SO2, SO3, and SO4. Okay? So, yun ang kwento nun. Now, paano kung gusto mong magpa-accredit? Okay, yun ang siguro ang paano kung gusto mong maging safety practitioner or ma-accredit as safety officer? Well, Department Order number 16 is not yet amended. So andyan pa rin yung accreditation. And yung requirements for accreditation is different from the SO1, SO2, SO3, or SO4 na nakalagay doon sa DO 198. Okay, so mas mataas yung kanyang mga requirements doon, and you need to be interviewed by the Occupational Safety and Health Center kasi sila ngayon ang in charge ng accreditation. Dati po sa mga regional offices yan ng DOLE when it was under the Bureau of Working Conditions yung accreditation. But now, binigay yan sa Occupational Safety and Health Center. Kaya ang center ngayon ang nag-accredit ng mga safety officers. Okay? So yun yung kwento nun. So in other way around, may mga iba kasi na SO4 ako, dapat consultant ako. Hindi. It doesn't mean na ikaw ay porke SO4 ka ay automatically na consultant ka. Hindi. Kasi na-mention kanina ni Sir Jobel na to be a consultant, you have to be an accredited safety officer in 2 fields. Okay? Ang safety, ang SO4 sa DO 198, wala siyang sinabi doon. Parang isang field lang ang sinasabi niya doon. But if you want to be accredited as OSH consultant, you have to be accredited as safety practitioner in 2 fields of, in 2 kinds of industries, 2 fields. Okay? So yun. But if you are already an OSH consultant, then automatically you can be the SO4. Okay? And then pag safety practitioner ka naman, automatic din na SO3 ka. Okay? Pwede rin na yung mga matagal na mga accredited na safety practitioner na hindi pa consultant, baka pwede pa silang SO4. Okay? So, depende yan sa tagal ng kanilang experience at sa mga naging trainings nila. So, wag kayong wag kayong malito doon kasi walang accreditation talaga sa DO-198. Okay? But you can be a safety officer based on the credentials, the qualifications stated in DO-198. But if you want to be an accredited safety officer, then may isang department order regarding dyan. And it can be shared through ganito ulit. Pwede namang i-discuss sa inyo, but it's too early for you. Okay? Ang sa akin lang is, at this age, sasabihin ko na wag niyong i-aim yung SO1. Yung SO1 is just an 8-hour training. Okay? Kayong magiging mechanical engineers, wag niyong ambisyonin yung SO1. Yung SO2 na kayo. Kasi sa SO1, alangan namang maging engineer ka na sa siyam lang yung employees. Okay? Maging engineer tayo at magtatrabaho tayo sa isang industry na most probably ay high risk. So, dapat ang training natin ay SO2. Okay? So, yun. And ang penalties, okay? Ang penalties, well, meron isang doon. Merong isang, may terms doon.